Our next reader is a graduate of Clarion Writers Workshop. His fiction, interviews, and book reviews have appeared in Shimmer, Digital Science Fiction, Strange Horizons, and Bull Spec, among others. He blogs at dustinmonk.wordpress.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at DustinJMonk. From that, you may have gathered that his name is Dustin Monk. Please welcome him to the stage.
I was hoping you wouldn't have to move it.
Well, just a little.
All right, thank you, Eden, and thank you, Andrew, for having me read tonight. Thank you, all of you, for coming out and listening to us, or not listening too is fine. So I'm going to read to you from my most recently published story. It's called The Street of the Green Elephant. It's in the latest issue of Shimmer, which came out in February of this year. And it's a bit of a lengthy piece, so I'm just going to read a little section of it. But to give you some backstory, it takes place in a city called the Shining City, which is on the kind of a verge of a revolt. The ruling ethnic group, the Sotirirat, are among other things, banning the manufacture and sale of tea, which has sort of semi-prophetic properties that their ethnic rivals, the Benyo, use to tea dream with. And the Benyo are, of course, fed up with this and decided to start fighting back. Into this is our narrator, Aude, and she is a sort of a particularly skilled tea dreamer, but is a little bit afraid of the talent. Her mother was also a very skilled tea dreamer and was killed in a plague. And her father, who is Sotirirat, her mother was Benyo. Her father has taken up the family trade. In this section I'm going to read, the city has just experienced some pretty tense protests that have left everybody on edge. Aude has stormed out of the room where her father does his illegal tea and tea dreams into the Street of the Green Elephant. A light rain fell, but the Street of the Green Elephant bustled. Discordant zithers and flutes wafted out from a music hall. A skinny girl was selling fried grasshoppers. I walked up the hill. On the veranda of a brothel, a woman smoking a long cigarette and fondling the crotch of a fat man called to me, "Where's your mother, half-breed?" Her braided hair fell to the backs of her knees. A man stumbled out of an alehouse. His face was red and pinched. He blew a kiss at me and wandered down an alley. It was strange. Everyone was Sotirirat. I didn't see a single Benyo, except two boys and a girl standing across the street outside of a bank. Everyone seemed to be ignoring the Benyo kids. They weren't much older than me, 15 name days, 17 at the most. I started to wave to them. I don't know why. Perhaps because since father had taken me out of school, I had no friends of my own age. But then I saw the expressions on their faces, grim, fierce, ready to strike. The taller boy, the one with an eye patch, beckoned me over, but I turned away. I thought I saw the glint of a blade in the girl's hand. The rain picked up, falling first in fat, clear drops, then in sheets. I hugged myself and ran up the hill faster, as if that would somehow save me. I didn't look back to see if father or Miss Petikta were following. I didn't care. I didn't care where I was going. Rain blinded my eyes, pelted my shoulders and head, hard like rocks, reminding me of my tea dream running through the bamboo forest, searching for mother. I was as lost and frightened now as I was then, but there was no web of leaves in the sky to show me mother's face. When I rounded the curve on the Street of the Green Elephant, I almost smacked into the gate of the looming temple of Wutwing Pim Batang. Even in the heavy rain, the temple's 6 spiral towers were spectacular, gold leaf roofs with statues of the gods sitting on the ledges. I stood at the base of the entrance shrine, 16 steps for the 16 gods and goddesses rising before me. The doors to the entrance were open. The monks were offering services today. I was suddenly very cold. It must be the rain, I thought, shivering. I was also terrified, though I didn't know why. I walked up the 16 stone steps and into the shrine, sopping wet and trying not to cry. The rain battered the roof. Along the walls of the shrine's interior were bas-reliefs of religious stories I'd never learned. Neither mother nor father had been particularly religious, except in making tea. In the center of the room, sitting in a plush red chair, I thought ridiculous looking, was a life-size sculpture of the god Jatado. He had long white hair of stone, but the rest of him was painted light green. His eyes were purple gems. A monk appeared from a hidden doorway I assumed led to the inner chambers of the temple. He was young and wore a flowing robe of black belted with gold. "You, dear child," he said, "are soaked." I looked down at my shivering body. A puddle of water grew at my feet. "I didn't mean to," I started, but the monk had reached me now and shushed me. "None of that." He looked me up and down. "Too skinny by half. When was the last time you ate anything?" I shrugged. He seemed to think I was homeless. I let him. I didn't want to return to Patikda's baubles, to father's punishment, to the argument. I was ashamed of what I'd said. Miss Patikda had taken care of me in the days when the rioting had reached the low towns and everyone thought it would make its way into the shining city. And she'd helped father with his business too, even though it was illegal. I blinked back tears. I wouldn't cry in front of this monk. He took me by my soaked shoulders and led me to the statue of Jatado. "First," he said, "you must make an offering." I looked back at him. "I don't have anything." The monk looked at me until I bowed to the statue. I closed my eyes. Even though I didn't believe in Jatado, and even if I had believed in him, it wouldn't have been his fault. I offered him a curse for taking mother. I didn't say it out loud, for fear the monk would turn me away, and I didn't want to go back into the rain. It was warmer here. When I opened my eyes and looked up at the monk, he towered above me, I realized. He was smiling sheepishly, as if he knew. Food, but first dry clothes, he laughed. Or secondly, rather. He pressed his hands at different places on the wall, and a door opened. "Temple secrets," mother had liked to say. "Tell me," said the monk, "what is your name?" "Mine is Anan." We sat at a long stone table with more religious scenes painted on the tabletop in one of the most ornately decorated dining halls I'd ever seen. Long scrolls hung from the ceiling and the walls, written in the ancient language. Ginger-scented candles placed in beautifully carved ibex horn sconces lit the room. In each corner there was a small statue of a god encased in glass and set upon a black shelf. A few monks, scattered like black and gold rocks, sat at the long table. It was warm in the dining hall in the monk robes Ananda had given me, and smelled of ginger and, deeper beneath that, sweat. A servant brought us 2 bowls of white rice and wild mushrooms and 2 cups of lukewarm water, but no tea. Never tea. "You know," Ananda said, "I'm mixed, like you." I looked at him, surprised I hadn't seen it before. I said, "My mother was Benyo, my father Sotirirad." "As were mine," said Ananda, a mushroom squishing between his teeth. "My mother died in the plague." Ananda frowned slightly. He must have heard something in my voice, and he looked about to say something. Words forming on his lips I could see, but then he didn't say anything, and we ate quietly afterwards. More monks came to the dining hall, and soon the room was filled with chatter and prayer. A stringy-haired older monk said, loud and dramatic enough for all to hear, "The shining city, pah! The stained city, more like. In the low towns even now, Benyo are preparing for war, sharpening swords and scythes. Listen to me, Sambadawande." The hawk-nosed monk the older monk was apparently talking to straightened up, swallowed his mushroom without chewing. "Yes, listen. The Benyo have never forgotten their sorcerous ways." The older monk leaned over the wide table, as if the conversation was now between him and the hawk-nosed monk, Sambadawanda only. But the table had grown quiet. The old monk said, "Tea." The room was still. Then, one monk, I didn't see who, snorted in laughter. Then another, and like a wave, the dining hall erupted with the guffaws of the monks of the temple of Wing Pin Batang. But the stringy-haired monk sat still, serious, staring at Sambadawanda. I looked at Ananda. His lips were smiling, but not his eyes. And he looked at me, and softened. "Do not listen to Nikoku Day," he said. "He is an old, frightened man." Ananda skewered a mushroom on each end of his chopsticks then and held them out to me. "Do you know what the real difference between Benyo and Sotirirat is?" he asked. Before I could tell him that Benyo were from the north and Sotirirat the west, Ananda said, "At the moment, one has more power than the other. Sometimes it is true, Aode, that those in power grow frightened when the balance starts to shift and they lose their grasp on that power. It is not easy to accept change or to realize that what was once thought of as a golden age for all was not so golden for some." Ananda continued, "Now, the Benyo are tired of the death tax, of settling for less than their Sotiriraj counterparts, of brewing and selling their tea in secret." I thought of my tea dream, my one and only tea dream. One entered it like one entered a stranger's garden, carefully, sneakily, apprehensively. Green light suffused everything. In my tea dream, I stood lost in a bamboo forest. The bamboo stalks were thick and tall, taller than most trees, taller than the temples and spiral towers of the shining city. The stalks seemed to close in on me, bending toward me, grasping at my arms and hair and lips. I cried out. Then I ran through the forest, falling, scraping my knees, twisting my ankle, no longer caring that I did not know where I was, only that I wanted to leave. In the distance, I saw towers of smoke billowing. Webs of leaves moved swiftly across the sky. In one web, I saw the face of Mother. My heart suddenly ached with longing, but I didn't understand it. Her web shattered like glass, and I knew then she was going to die. I saw Father's face in another web. He looked lost or surprised. Somehow, the smoke had reached me. It was everywhere. I coughed and coughed. Then I opened my eyes in the dark room of the house we lived in before Mother died, before Father took up shop in Miss Patikda's. Mother had asked me if I understood any of the tea dream, but I hadn't, of course. I told her and Father I didn't want to tea dream again. A little less than 2 months later, Father and I stood at the top of a hill and spread Mother's ashes on the wind. He told me he too had seen what I'd seen. Sometimes tea dreams are just dreams, he'd said. They don't mean anything. He never spoke of it again, and I never forgot. In the dining hall, the old monk ate his food in silence. Other monks left to pray in the inner chambers of the temple. Soon, the room was empty, as it had been when Ananda and I had entered it. The only sound was the rain pounding on the roof. Thank you.